America in the 20s, a nation under construction, already the most industrialized in the world. A nation divided between white and black, city and country. The South looking enviously north, the North looking sentimentally south, longing for what it had left behind. New York, center of the new recording boom. Radio and recording were pulling America together as a nation. They were also big business. Recording companies were firing on all cylinders, looking for anything and everything that might sell. In 1920, a record label called OK had a surprise hit. This was far from folk music, but it was the first record called a blues by a black singer.
My father was involved with recording Crazy Blues, which went on, I'm told, to sell 1 million records. And, of course, it was selling to a new market.
They discovered a big market there because when blacks heard a black person singing, they wanted to buy it.
OK had already found new markets amongst the immigrants who were flowing into the States. They were full of nostalgia for what they'd left behind.
The record industry in America had already recorded a lot of immigrant music, but they didn't have American music yet in their catalogs. Then they started realizing there was these markets.
It gave them ideas about another foreign country also exporting its people to the industrial North, the American South. Rival record company scouts set off south looking for music that had never been recorded before. They would release the pent-up energy of ages, the glorious mixture of old and new that would come to be called American folk. Ever since the Civil War, it had been folklorists who had headed south trying to capture the music of the past before it slipped away.
The words folk music had been invented in Europe way back in the 19th century and meant the music of the peasant class, ancient and anonymous. And if you wrote them down, you put the words in your library because they were dying out.
For America, the peasant class had meant mountain men, Native Americans, black slaves. Now folklorists saw a threat from the corrupting influence of radios and records. But ironically, it was the record companies who were making the running in preserving the old sounds. They didn't care what folk music was. They'd take anything that would sell.
The record companies unknowingly acted almost as folklorists. They would take out ads in the local newspapers. Can you play a guitar? Can you sing? Do you know old songs? Are you a fiddler? And of course, people would flock in for the auditions.
The records cater to an already existing audience. They reflect the music back to the communities that make it. But recording the music will change it. It will become a business. Just what the South needed. Fiddlers' conventions all over the South threw up local heroes like Fiddling John Carson from Georgia.
Now I'm getting old and feeble and I cannot work no more. That rusted-bladed hoe I've laid to rest.
Carson was the first musician to make a record in the South in 1923.
My father was an early exponent of location recordings, and he did a lot of them.
His first was not his favorite.
Apparently he called it Pluperfect Awful.
But it went down a treat in Georgia. Slim Bryant, now 100 years old, was there.
I played the Atlanta Fiddlers Contest, and Fiddlin' John Carson was there. He was a big draw then because he had 2 or 3 records that were big hits. A lot of people showed up to see him. He was a showman. He was a showman. We found out that this was a pretty good business.
Take the train on time, take the train to Charlotte, but that gal of mine.
Someone else wanted a piece of the action. Pop Stoneman from the Appalachians didn't wait to be discovered. He set off to New York. He was Southern music's first businessman.
Oh, when are you coming to see me, to see me, to see me? Oh, when are you coming to see me, my dear old Nicholas boy?
I'll come next Sunday, next Sunday, next Sunday. I'll come next Sunday, if the weather is good.
Oh, when you come and see me, to see me, to see me. Oh, when you come and see me, my dear old Nicholas boy.
I expect I'll come next Sunday, next Sunday, next Sunday. I expect I'll come next Sunday, if the weather is good.
He saved enough money to go to New York, and he wrote to OK and Victor recording companies. First he went to Columbia, and they didn't offer enough money, so then he went to Mr. Peer.
Father was a Spanish merchant, and before he went to sea,
Ralph Peer seems to have had this almost unerring ear for what would work on records, and therefore what would sell on records. Almost invariably what Peer heard and recorded is a notch or two better than what any of his rivals recorded.
I know your father was against me.
One trick that Pop Stoneman learned from Peer was to change old songs enough to be able to claim them under the new Copyright Act.
This allowed my father to pay the artist royalty based on their success. So Mr. Stoneman was able to report good earnings.
This is a cylinder record. All these are Daddy.
Like so many folk songs, this one was written by a professional composer in the 19th century and travelled down to the south of which it sang.
Pop Stoneman's music was basically conservative, mining the songs and the music of his area, and he had the drive to contact musicians, contact record companies. He created a certain way of playing music for a living.
The market for this music was still mainly local, but it was a lucrative one if you knew how to exploit it. Pop Stoneman recorded for every company there was.
When he was working for Edison and OK, they used a different name. In fact, when I was a kid, I saw a picture of Daddy with a fake mustache on and a big old hat. They'd do anything to change it. These are some of the names they used. The Dixie Mountaineers, the Blue Ridge Cornsuckers, that was on Vocalion. Eddie and Eddie, that was on the Conqueror. That was 25 different names he had. And he recorded on 26 different labels. Well, that's just a thing to do, I guess, make more money. We had everything we needed and wanted. We had maids, we had cars, we had everything. And I used to stand and wait for Mommy and Daddy to come in home and watch them. They'd be coming down the hill in an open touring car with a bunch of musicians, feet hanging out the doors, and Mommy sitting up in the front so prissy looking and so pretty, and she had a white fur on and a hat, what they call a closed hat.
It was sad when that great ship went down. It was sad when that great ship went down. There were hard runs and wives, and little children lost their lives. It was sad when that great ship went down.
Pop Stoneman's version of the story of the Titanic disaster was a huge hit.
It was sad when that great ship went down.
The Titanic story was an old favourite with both whites and blacks. Songs of death and disaster always went down well.